Hey guys, it's Karen from A Yarn Tale. I'm coming to you from Chicago, where I live with my husband, our 3 kids, and our dog Max. This is a knitting podcast, so if you're new here, welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. I'm so glad you came. This is where I talk about everything that I've been working on, or things I want to work on, or I don't know, things I'm supposed to be working on, but I've totally abandoned. So come on in. It's been a while since I posted an episode. It's been a little over 3 weeks, just because things got busy around here and there just didn't seem to be a quiet moment to record. So we have a lot to go over. So let's get right into it. I am wearing my Copenhagen cardigan by Petite Knit. It is knit out of 2 yarns held together. One of them I still have a skein left. It is the a.k.a. Spinny, which is a single ply, 100% wool. And then the other one is also an a.k.a. They're alpaca too. And I don't know what colorway this is. I believe it's a number, color 40. So this cardigan's knit back and forth flat from the top down. You do the button band as you go, which I fully appreciate because I'm not a fan of picking up stitches for button bands. I didn't add the buttons. There's like an afterthought buttonhole you can do, and then, you know, presumably sew on buttons. And I kind of regret it. Every time I put it on, I'm like, you know, I should really add buttons because I'm always fiddling with it, and it does fit if you close it. Like, it's not too tight, it's not too small. I feel like I would close it if there were a way to do so. But I am the worst at sewing on buttons and fiddling with an afterthought buttonhole, which I think you just stretch the stitch and go around with some sort of embroidery floss or something. The instructions are in the pattern and I just skipped it because I was like, optional. No. But I think I would get more wear out of this cardigan if it actually had a way to close it. So, you know, one of those days I'm feeling super productive and up for a challenge. I should really add buttons if I had buttons. So I should also find them. Right. But anyway, this is the Copenhagen cardigan by Petite Knit. I love it. I would highly recommend it. It's super easy. It's just stockinette, so I guess it could get boring, but I have a really high tolerance for tedious things, so it didn't bother me. I actually found it really relaxing. So that is what I'm wearing. I have one finished object today. It is a Scrappy Hat. I was going through my stash, such that it is, and I found some worsted weight scraps. There is a white, okay, here it is. I found some worsted weight scraps that I thought went really well together. These are, this is the Movers and Makers Winter on Holme, and oh no, you guys, my tiny worsted weight scrap just fell in my coffee. Good thing there wasn't that much left. Okay, well, let's do this one first. I have a tiny bit left of my worsted weight yarn from that hat kit from 3 Irish Girls, and this was pre-coffee, the colorway My Sherry Amour, I believe it was, but this is trash now, so awesome. Good thing I got use out of it. Okay, so there's that. These are Movers and Makers Wicker Park worsted, I believe it's called, in the colorway Winter on Holme, and some kind of tonal black, which the name escapes me. I used it actually to knit, I have one of them here, the June Hat by Kelborn Woolens. I knit it twice, the first time with this iteration, and then I had enough to knit it a second time, swapping the colors so that the brim and the slip stitches are in the darker color, and the contrast color is the white. So tons of yarn in that skein. It was not like excessively big, but I guess these hats don't take that much. So I had a decent amount left over, and I still have a decent amount left over even after using it in this hat. So I cast on, I thought these yarns just went well together. I'm gonna leave that pink one over there because it is gross. This is what's left over from Woolfolk Far that I used for that shawl for my mother-in-law. It was called The Void. And I still have a tiny bit left, but I'm really glad I used a lot of that up because this yarn is glorious. It is soft, and fuzzy, and nice. And I just love the neutrally like cool color. So I'm glad I got to use that up. And so I was originally like, oh yeah, I'd like to do a colorwork hat, because I'm trying to up my colorwork game this year. And I thought a hat is always a good way to sort of do a little, but not overburden myself. So I cast on, I was looking around for hat patterns, and there's like 1,000 colorwork hat patterns, but none of them used 4 colors. And I just didn't have the brain power to like sub in. I don't know. I was like, whatever, I'll just start and see what happens. So I cast on the similar number of stitches that I used for this hat because it was the same yarn. So I was like, okay, well that fit my head. I think it was like 90 something stitches. Actually, I think this might be 80. I think I went up a little bit because I used a smaller needle. Whatever. I cast on some stitches. I knit the brim until I was like, that looks pretty good. And then I just kind of made stuff up. Like I added in some little blips, and then I was like, oh, maybe I'll do a zigzag. So I did a little zigzag in the pink. And then of course I got to the end. Sorry, I didn't weave in my ends yet. So yes, that is what's happening on the inside. I got to the end and realized I had miscalculated the multiple that I would need for the zigzag here. So it didn't turn out right. Like it didn't match up. So I just added some stitches. It's really sort of ad hoc, the whole thing. But I don't even think you can really see it. Like, where's the jog? Yeah, this is where it comes together. And after I added my stitches, it did line up. And I don't think it looks horrible. I mean, I always put that part in the back, but even if I didn't, I mean, ignoring these, I don't think that's that bad. So then I just did a little bit of this. I was like, oh, maybe I'll make it mostly blue. I had no idea what I was doing. And then I did like a bigger zigzag on the top. And this actually, I sort of screwed up because when you do a 3-color zigzag, there were 1 or 2 rows in here where I had 3 colors in a single row. No wonder people don't do that in their designs, because it was sort of a yarn management nightmare. But I mean, it was only a couple rows, and at that point I'd already started. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna power through. And then I just did some rando decreases at the top, like some knit 2 togethers in some such pattern to get it down to a smaller amount. I like how it turned out. I will say I've never made up my own stuff before, and like you could tell. Because when I put it on, when I was doing it, I sort of viewed this part as like a throwaway part because it was not very high contrast, and I was like, whatever, it'll just be in there, but not that noticeable. And I actually really a lot more liked the more high contrast zigzag at the top. But of course, the way that it falls on your head, you don't really see that part. It's kind of just lost in the decreases and at the top of your head. So, I mean, if you look at it from the top, it looks cool. But when you wear it, you mostly just see like this low contrast part that's like, whatever. I think it's great. It fits. It does kind of poof out where the brim meets the body of the hat because I just added a bunch of stitches. I increased because I was trying to get the multiple to work right for the zigzag that I wanted to do. But then of course I didn't even do it right. So I don't know. I had a fudge it at the end. So, I used up a bunch of scraps. I felt really virtuous using my scraps. It was kind of fun to make something up because you didn't have to follow any instructions, or I didn't have to like bring a pattern with me. I just kind of winged it. And I don't think it was awful for having 0 planning. And I like the color palette, which I guess I won't be doing again because I've just destroyed my pink yarn. But this is my Scrappy Hat. I would definitely try making up a hat again, and maybe I would do slightly better with the construction next time. But it is really soft because the Woolfolk Far, where'd it go? The blue one is really super soft, and the white and black and pink are like moderately soft. They're all superwash, I believe. So there's none of the scratchiness that sometimes gets in the way when you're dealing with something that's really close to your face. So success. I mean, semi-success. I will definitely wear it. And my kindergartner, who seems obsessed with my knitwear, has already asked me if she could wear it to school. And I was like, well, let me weave in the ends and we will discuss. I might add a yarn pom-pom or not. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, if I did it, I could probably use up the very last bits of this blue, which I kind of like the idea of. But we'll see how industrious I end up being. That's my Scrappy Hat. And then I don't have, oh, I have one more finished object. Surprise! Except I've been wearing these, so they look a little janky. These are the Tin Can Knits, what's it called? Like the world's simplest mittens pattern. Wait, I have notes. Yeah, the world's simplest mittens by Tin Can Knits. This was also an attempt to use up scraps. These are DK. You can make these mitts in, I believe the pattern is for fingering, DK, worsted, and it might even go past worsted. But it's really simple. It's basically like knitting a DK sock. You cast on however many number of stitches for your yarn weight, and then knit a 1x1 cuff. And then I was striping it because I had two, hang on, I'm gonna grab my leftovers. I have a little bit left. I had two little bits of DK yarn that I wanted to use. These are super old. Like I knit a colorwork hat for my daughter when I first started knitting. I don't even remember. I think these are Northern Bee Studio in their Studio DK. And I have no idea what the colorways are. It's like this really tonal purple, which I love, and some kind of off-white deal. So I was like, well, I want to use these up. And I wasn't sure how to do so. I didn't think I would have enough to do an entire pair of mitts in either color. And I didn't want it to look too scrappy, like I just got to the end and ran out of yarn, which a lot of times when people color block, that's the first thing I think, where I'm like, oh dang, you didn't have enough. So I was like, well, let me just stripe it. I know it'll have enough if I stripe it. And it's a little weird to have adult mittens that are striped purple. It's a little bit loud for me, but I kind of like them. They are really fast. I knit this pair in 2 days. Now, granted, I was watching a swim meet for both of those days, which means I had basically 5 hours of uninterrupted knitting time each day because you just have to sit there until the 45 seconds where your son is swimming, and then you're like, swim, and then you can just go back to like calmly chilling out for the next 50 minutes until he races again. So I did knit these in a weekend, and they fit. Like my wrists are really narrow and the cuffs totally fit. I made them extra long because I hate that gap in your coat, between the coat and your mittens, because it's Chicago and it's freaking freezing here. So you want every little bit to be covered as much as possible. So I would highly recommend this mitten pattern. I believe it's free. I think it is free. And it's super easy. It works for a lot of yarn gauges. And Caleb at Drowning in Yarn, I saw posted modifications for this exact pattern to make them convertible where the top flips off. And that looks super cool and way more useful than giant oven mitts that I knit. So the next time I make these mittens, which legitimately I was thinking of casting on like tomorrow because I'm in a scrappy mood apparently, and I just want to take advantage of that feeling while it's still here. So I might just pick out some more scraps that I have and cast on a new pair and try to do the convertible version that Caleb did. Because truly, even if it is the slightest bit tricky, it can't be that bad. I mean, they're not called the world's simplest mittens for nothing. Highly recommend. So this is my second finished object. And that is it for finished. I do have, well, okay. That's not entirely true. I have one other object that was finished, and then I realized I screwed it up, so I had to unfinish it. So that is my Social Bubble Jumper by Brenda Lamb. you may remember. It is a chunky sweater or super bulky or jumbo. I don't know. It's giant. It's a giant sweater. And if I can get it out of this bag. Okay. So last time I showed this on the podcast, I had done one sleeve. It's like this super cool pullover. Okay, I gotta get my coffee out of here so I don't dip every yarn item into coffee. So the body has all stockinette except for these little pearl bumps that make a simple pattern all the way around. And the sleeves are kind of where the cool design element is. It's this bubble stitch. I know Stephen West has used this bubble stitch, and Brenda is obsessed with it, as am I. I think it is beautiful. I think I should really knit all the things in this stitch. And then there's just a ribbed cuff at the end. So I was like, shoot, I only have one more sleeve. I'm just gonna knock it out. So I took a weekend and just knocked out my sleeve, and I thought that I remembered how to do this bubble stitch. But as it turns out, I only partly remembered it, and the way that I did it did not look nearly as good. So I don't know if you can tell. This is sleeve number 2, and it's like slightly bubbly, but not nearly as cool as sleeve number 1. I mean, check that out. That is amazing, right? Especially it shows up in the slide. Sleeve number 2, I put it on and I'm like, yay, I'm done. Oh no, what happened to my sleeve? And then I was like, uh-oh, did I not do that right? And I looked up how to do the bubble stitch, which I clearly should have looked up before I came back to the project. Hindsight is 20/20. So first I was like, you know what? No one's gonna notice that. I'm just gonna leave it. But then I wore it for half a day and was like, yeah, I don't like that. So I'm gonna fix it, which is like, oh my God, how are you gonna fix it? I mean, it's not that big of a deal because even if I had to rip out the whole sleeve and knit it again, it literally took me 2 days to do. So I could clearly do that, but it just seemed like a better idea to me to see if I could drop down and fix those bubble rows. So I did one. Let me see if I can find the one I did. Oh yeah, you can literally see the difference. Okay, I ripped out the cuff. I like took out the bind off and ripped back the cuff so that I got to my live stitches for the sleeve. Oh my God, I'm dropping stitches. Okay, and I was like, well, let me just try to drop down and see if I can fix those bubble stitches so I don't have to reknit the whole thing. And I think I did it. I only did it once. Shoot, now I don't see it. This one. Okay. So see on the sleeve, there's one row that looks good. It's like really textured. That's the one I fixed. So it was a little bit of a challenge because once you start laddering down for the bubble stitch, all of the strands get real jumbled up because you've got your regular knit stitches and then you've got those bubble stitches that go under and over. So what I ended up doing, and I sort of am toying around with the idea of filming a little fix-it tutorial because I love a good fix-it and I didn't see one online. But what I ended up doing when you drop down, whenever I got to a bubble stitch, I just put a stitch marker around that particular horizontal bar so that I could remember which one is the one that goes up and under. And then when I laddered up, it actually was not that bad. So now I counted, I only have to do it 19 more times. So I don't know, will it be faster than reknitting the sleeve? Maybe not, but it feels different in my brain. It feels not as bad. So I'm just gonna get to it and do it. And hopefully by the next podcast, I'll finally have finished this sweater for the second time. So that is the Social Bubble Jumper by Brenda Lamb. I would highly recommend it. It is a very easy pattern as long as you take 30 seconds to look up the bubble stitch before you knit the whole sleeve. I am knitting this out of Knit Picks Tough Puff, which is like a really giant roving style yarn. It's 100% wool. in the colorway pomegranate, which I really love. This was really inexpensive yarn. I don't remember what I paid for it, but I felt really, really virtuous, like good Karen when I bought it. Instead of spending, you know, $200 on Danish alpaca, I just bought the Knit Picks Tough Puff and was able to get a sweater out of it. So I also would recommend that. It's not like super squishy, fluffy yarn goodness, but it looks really nice and it's 100% wool. So I would recommend that. All right, the next project that I am working on is the Dahlia cardigan by Lene, Holme, Samsøe. And this is a top-down cardigan with a lace detail at the yoke that I'm knitting for my daughter. I am knitting the size 6. She is almost 6 and she's actually a really tiny 5. So this is gonna be too big on her, but I'd rather it be too big than too small. I didn't want to knit the 4 because first of all, she'd be offended if she figured out that it was a 4. Because like, I'm not 4. So I just knit the 6 and hopefully she'll be able to wear it in short order. So this cardigan is knit flat back and forth. The yoke has this lace detail, this beautiful leaf detail, which I just think is lovely. It is not hard because I am definitely not a lace knitter. I struggle so much to read my knitting when there's any kind of lace pattern. But this was not bad. I did mess it up a little, but I was able to go back and fix it without too much pain and suffering. So that was good. This is knit. It's a DK gauge. So I am holding Madeline Tosh glitter, Madeline Tosh light. It's like a sparkle base. I think it's called like, I can't remember what it is. But there's a little bit of stellina in there, and this is just the natural colorway. So it is silvery sparkle, which I'm not, oh, there is a little bit. You can catch it. Oh my gosh, I am trying so hard to dip all my yarn in coffee. Okay, this is why, how do podcasters podcast with coffee? I was like, people do it all the time. I'm gonna do it. I should not do it. Okay, I'm gonna take one sip, I'm gonna put it away. Oh my God, you guys. So this is not a fancy coffee mug because I don't have any like fancy hand-thrown pottery, which I really should get on because some of those things are just beautiful. But this is every year at the end of the year for Christmas, I buy myself a coffee mug with a quote that I found particularly amusing from someone in our family. So it started out when we only had one child, and my son George was 3 years old, and he said a bunch of funny stuff that year. So I was like, you know what, that'll be really cute. I'll get a mug for him, like with some quote of his that he said, and then we'll just remember it. So I ordered it, and then we had our second, so every year I did one. And then as we've had more children, it's become, I guess our family is fairly competitive. So it's become kind of a competition to see who gets the mug that year. Because I'm the one that picks and I never say what it is until Christmas morning. And it has to be, the rule is, it has to be something funny that everyone in the family has heard when they said it. So it can't be something really funny that the kids said on the way home from school or something because, you know, then my husband didn't hear it. Or there's a lot of things that get disqualified because of this rule. Because I didn't want it to be like an inside joke, you know, where only 2 or 3 people in the family knew what it was and the other ones were like, what? So it has to be something that somebody says when we're all together, which, you know. So this one is from Franny when she was 3, a couple years ago, when I forget what she was doing, something totally inappropriate. And we were all doing that thing where we're trying not to laugh because we're trying to tell her like, no, don't make bathroom noises at the dinner table. And she, you know, but we're like really trying not to laugh. And she goes, Dad, I saw you smile. And everybody like cracked up because she was like this tiny little pipsqueak 3-year-old. So that made the mug this year, or that year. But Franny gets a lot of mugs because she is a goofball. Okay, so cardigan. So I am holding 2 strands of the Madeline Tosh light with glitter, held double. And you can see it if you look at it, but I don't actually mind when you can tell that yarn is held double. I mean, you know what, who is looking at that? Like anyone who looks at that is just like, you're looking too hard. So I'm on my second sleeve. I marked my decreases with light bulb stitch markers, which I've never done before. I see a lot of people do that to keep track of where the decreases are and just make the second sleeve that much easier. And I thought I would make my life easier and actually give that a try. So it's working out great. I can definitely see why people do that. You don't have to like count rows and figure out what you're doing. And it goes a lot faster. So I think I have 2 or 3 more decreases to go before I get to the cuff. And then all I have to do is pick up stitches for the button band, make a button band, and somehow find buttons and sew them on. And I do want to try to get ribbon for the inside just to stabilize the button band a little bit, and I don't know, just because I think it would be cool and I've never tried that before. But of course, you guys were so helpful in the comments and pointed me to the Woolly Thistle, where they have this beautiful Norwegian ribbon that you can use to cover your steeks, and I love it. But I made the mistake of showing Franny. I was looking at the different kinds and she was like, I want that one. And of course she picked a colorway that was no longer available. And I was like, oh, honey, they don't have that one. You should get this other one. And she's like, I don't like that. so I'm gonna poke around. I mean, she might actually forget that she doesn't like that one. If I order it, she might like it once it's on. But she also might not. I mean, my kids are pretty particular, so I don't want to go to the trouble to sew on a ribbon that is going to wreck the whole sweater for her. So I don't know. That's like a problem for a later time. I do have to find buttons, but I kind of want to knit the button band first to see how big the button holes are. I stink at button bands and buttonholes and buttons and sewing. I don't know. So I'm gonna knit the button band and just take a look at it and see what I can find. Last time I tried to look for buttons on the internet, it was like the biggest needle in the haystack odyssey of a search, and I really didn't even like the buttons that I ended up using. So I'm hoping I can do better this time. I feel like I have more of an option because this is such a neutral sweater that really I could take it in any direction button-wise and it would work. That's what I'm saying. So hopefully next time I'll have a finished sweater. She did try it on before I picked up for the second sleeve, so there weren't like DPNs poking everywhere. And it's long, but it does fit. I mean, it'll look big, but I'm confident that the fit eventually will work, like definitely for next year. So I would highly recommend this pattern. It knits up super fast. If I were not distracted by 1,000 other projects and scrappy things and whatever else, this definitely should have been done. So that is that. So my next work in progress is the Woodblock tee by Emily Greene. Oh my gosh, is it not in here? Oh no, it is. Okay, so here's the other problem. Last time I took this out of my bag, I dropped like 40 stitches. And I just jammed them all back on there, but I haven't even reoriented them correctly. Maybe this is not the right project bag for this. Okay, so you guys, if you could see the mess that is happening. Okay, so it doesn't look like, okay, get out of here, waste yarn. It doesn't look like a lot, even though I have spent tons of time on this. So it really should look more impressive than this. But oh no, don't drop more stitches. This yarn just wants to slip off these metal needles like you would not believe. And really the answer is, why don't you use wooden needles? I know. But I really like my Chow Goose. And so I'm just gonna power through and try it. Okay, so it looks a little sad now because it came off the needles and like I said, I just jammed it all back on. But the Woodblock tee, let me see if I can find a picture. Hang on. I think I have the front pattern page here. I do. Okay. If you recall, The Woodblock tee is a t-shirt. It's ribbed. It's hard to see in this picture. It's ribbed kind of all over. There's one ribbing, you knit it bottom up, and there's one section of ribbing at the bottom, and then kind of right there, it changes to a different rib pattern. And then up towards the bust, there's this triangular motif that I think is made with knits and purls. I have not really looked at the pattern too closely. But this is it. So the sample is knit out of Brooklyn tweed. I don't remember which version of Brooklyn tweed, but some kind of Brooklyn tweed yarn. I didn't go in that direction because I want to use this as a summer tee, and that was pretty heavy. I thought it would be pretty heavy. So I am knitting it out of Sandnes Garn. Where is my other? Sandnes Garn Lene. It's like a thin linen. It is, these things are so hard to read. Okay, it is 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen. It is similar yarn construction to, I have used their Lene base that's like a worsted weight, I think, for my Anchor Summer Tee from Petite Knit. And I love the fabric that it created once it's blocked, but it is kind of a bear to knit with. It's like ropey and there's no give to it. It's not like wool. And the Lene yarn that I used for my Anchor Summer Tee was really splitty. So I was worried that this would also be splitty. It would be, but it's super thin. So I am not having trouble with my needle going through the plies. What I am having trouble with, and I don't even know how to describe this. When I knit, oh, here's a good example. I don't know if I'm adding twist or what the problem is. One ply frequently gets like separated from the rest. So it like bubbles up like that. Can you see that? I mean, I know it's focusing on my face, but can you see that like bumpy portion there? That is a single ply of the plied yarn that is just like not in sync with the rest of the strand. So what I tried, I thought maybe I just pulled a ply and kind of gotten off track. So I actually broke the yarn and straightened it out and rejoined the ball. So that's awesome. I have 2 extra ends. Great. But it keeps happening. Like no matter how many times I break the yarn and start over again, whatever I'm doing when I knit causes that situation to reoccur, which is super irritating. What I'm doing is just like smoothing it out as I knit, and it'll kind of kick the can down the line and it'll push the problem further down so that it doesn't affect my knitting. I've also tried just knitting over it, hoping that you wouldn't see it in the garment. And then I was like, maybe further on, once I get past that, because like further down towards the ball, it looks normal again. So I tried knitting through it, knitting with the yarn like that, and hoping I could get to like a straight part, but it just keeps occurring. So great. I'm just like smoothing the yarn out so that when I use it, it's in a normal form. And then, I don't know, I didn't have that problem with the thicker base. So, you know, new and interesting problems. I don't know. It's super slow going, partly because of that yarn issue and partly because it's just all ribbing. So it's not a 1x1. I don't even remember what it is. But it's just a ribbing pattern, and I think I need like 2 or 3 more inches of this ribbing pattern at the hem. So I am going to be working on this forever and ever. I was hoping to have it done for spring break in March. That is totally not going to happen. I might have it done for summer. So that's good. I do like the way that it looks though. The other concern I have is my gauge. I could not get gauge with this yarn. So I don't even know what the gauge is, but it's pretty tight. So my stitches per inch was you know, I needed to basically knit down a size, but I normally would only knit the second size up. So I didn't have that much wiggle room as far as going down. So I'm knitting the smallest size, but I'm still gonna end up with a pretty significantly bigger garment than I normally would want. I would like to have a garment that's like 41 inches around at the bust. And I think I'm gonna get one with 44 inches. If I did some fancy math. And I think I'm gonna have 3 extra inches. I can't tell because it's on a pretty small cord, but it does look like there's a decent amount of extra fabric in there. That's a lot of positive V's for me. I think I'm like a 33-inch bust, depending. Which I know you're like, oh my God, 11 inches of positive V's, that's a ton. But the pattern allows for that. So I don't know where that picture went. Here we go. So these pictures have 9 inches of positive V's, or 6 or 9. But there's one version, which of course I didn't print out that picture, but there's one version where the model is wearing like a lot more positive V's. And it just kind of, it's really drapey. It goes over the shoulders and it's like a really wide boxy look. And I don't hate it. I'm not that much positive V's. I forget what it is, but I'm not as large as that. So I think I'll still like the look of it. It's not gonna fit like this, but I think it still will look intentional, not just like I screwed up my knitting. I mean, or I'll just give it away. Like some lucky person will get my Woodblock tee and I'll try again with a different yarn. I think it's just because when I subbed out the yarn, it wasn't that comparable. But I'm not too worried about it. I'm just like sort of mindful of it. I didn't feel comfortable omitting some, like trying to grade the pattern down on my own. One, because I've never done that. And two, the way that the triangle motif works in the bust and the shoulder seam and everything, it looked tricky. It wasn't just like eliminating stitches from the body. I think it would have affected the construction. So I'm just gonna knit a big garment and see what happens. I don't know. Cross your fingers, you guys, because that might be a really sad situation. But I mean, it's just yarn. So that's the Woodblock tee by Emily Greene. Is that her name? Yes, Emily Greene. And then those are the only projects I'm working on currently. I have my Schneeflocken by Sarah Solomon, which is a colorwork yoke sweater that I haven't picked up. I need to do the yoke. And I haven't turned to it during these last couple weeks, but I'm gonna throw it back into the rotation because I do want to wear it before this winter is over. I think I'm gonna be able to knock it out in a couple weeks because usually when I knit top down, the yoke itself doesn't take that long. And it is a colorwork chart, and colorwork is super motivating for me to work on because I just want to see how the chart knits up. So if I put it back in the rotation, I think I'll have that sweater done in short order. So the only other thing I have to talk about is yarn that I got in the mail. So I don't know if you'll remember, I am planning to knit this spot sweater by Ventzel. It is a beautiful all over colorwork sweater that is way out of my ability level. But I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try it. And to make matters worse, it is knit with, I'm doing these exact colors just to make my life easy. It is knit with 3 colors of mohair held triple for the light color. That's these. I don't know how these 3 colors make that. This is why color, like yarn marling and blending together, is a complete mystery to me. I mean, that's what makes it really exciting because I cannot picture what this yarn together will look like. To me, I'm just like, I don't know, I guess it'll be kind of a jumbly jumble. I don't think I would like that, but I love this. I love that. So who knew? Okay, so these are my 3. It is, I mean, you can also look up the pattern because it's literally the colors that she chose. Oh, there's no colorway names on here. Well, they have colorway names on the website. This is 44. This is no. Oh no, that must be the lot. Okay, so the colorway is 336, 101, which is like this off-white, and 196 is this like canary yellow. Not what I would ever pick. I don't think I have anything yellow in my wardrobe. But we'll see how they knit up together. And then the contrast color is, oh yeah, this is Filcolana Tilia, which is a mohair. It's 70% kid mohair, 30% silk. Ooh, there's my double point. And this is Filcolana Pernilla, Peruvian Highland wool. I don't know how you pronounce that. It is 100% wool in the colorway. Oh, this also doesn't have the colorway. It's 817. I think it's like cinnamon, or it's this beautiful brown, which I love it. I love it. I love it. So this is gonna be my spot sweater. But I'm not gonna start that until I'm done with my Schneeflocken, because I can't have 2 colorwork sweaters on the needles at the same time. I think it might actually stress me out. It's too similar, you know what I mean? It's like a similar skill set to do a colorwork yoke and to figure out yet another chart for this spot sweater, which I can already tell this is gonna be kind of a situation, because I have been looking at the chart. I'm not gonna show it, but like that's the chart situation for the spot sweater. I do not understand how to read that chart. Because it's like in part of the chart, it sections out a repeat. So I'm like, okay, you knit to that part and then you do the repeat, but then there's these increases and that are not in my brain marked on the chart the way I would think they should be marked. I don't know. I don't even know if I can knit up a swatch, to be fair. Like because you have to follow the chart enough to knit a swatch. I'm gonna try. And like I said, she has some really good tutorials, video tutorials on her YouTube page that knit through portions of the chart. So I'm hoping there's no audio that goes along with these videos. It's just kind of slow motion of her knitting through the chart. So I'm hoping that if I sit down with those videos and sort of deep dive into the chart, I can figure it out. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to ask the internet, I think, or go to my local yarn store and be like that person at the store being like, I can't do it. I don't know, but that is a problem for another day, because I'm not gonna get to that until I'm done with the Schneeflocken. So I'm excited. I love the yarn. The 100% wool Filcolana is not super soft. It's definitely not scratchy, but it's not like, you know, anything that I'd write home about, that it's like the squishiest, softest yarn. But paired with the mohair, I think it's gonna really soften it up. So there's that going on. That's my spot sweater. So that's exciting things to come. And I think that's it. I don't have any more knitting. I did spend 3 days of my life contemplating going down the rabbit hole of hand stitching. This is such not a good fit for me. I do not like needlework. Like I said, I don't even like sewing on buttons. I'm afraid of buttonholes. Anything that involves like fine needlework. I watch people talk about their embroidery and cross stitch and I'm like, no, nope, no. But there was kind of a perfect storm of things that made me consider this. So thing one was I watched Amy Beth of the Fat Squirrel talk about how she super enjoyed hand sewing garments because you don't have to deal with a sewing machine. It's not like loud. You can, in the same way that you can knit while watching TV or while spending time with your family, you can also hand stitch in a way that doesn't require you to be isolated from those around you and making loud noise with your machine. And getting a machine and figuring out how to work it and all that nonsense. So she was like extolling the virtues of hand sewing and saying that, you know, she had bought a book off Etsy where you could hand sew garments in a way that was, you know, it never occurred to me that you could hand sew anything other than basically embroidery or like a small pillow or some such thing. So I was like, huh, interesting. Yeah, that sounds super time consuming. But then again, I mean, the fabric itself is already created, right? It's not like knitting. You don't actually have to create the fabric. You just have to seam it together. So, I mean, that doesn't sound horrible to me. So I was like, huh, interesting. And then at that exact moment, my first grader came home and said, Mom, we're sewing in class. I guess her teacher is a really accomplished sewist. So she had set up a whole station where the kids could hand sew with felt and embroidery floss, but with real like sharp hand sewing needles. And so my daughter is super crafty and she had asked if we could get some of those supplies for her. So I picked up a whole bunch of stuff at Joann's or Michael's or whatever big box store. And, you know, like needles and felt and good scissors and googly eyes and batting because they were making these little animals out of felt. So my daughter is, she has a little bit of a CEO in her. And she was like, okay, people, it is the weekend and here is your ticket for sewing class in my room at 11 a.m. Please don't be late and wash your hands before you come. I'm not even joking. She like handed out little tickets to everyone in my family, including my 5th grade boy and my husband and all of us. So we go to this sewing class on Sunday morning and she had everything all laid out on her sewing table, which is a Minnie Mouse wooden table in her room. And she did a whole presentation of, you know, how you use the materials and how you can hand sew. She wanted everyone to make these little wallets. They're like, you fold the felt over basically 3 times and then sew the sides. Okay, so we're basically all in there sewing our wallets. And she did a bang up job. I should go get one. And I was super humbled by how tricky it was and how slow it was and how uneven and janky my stitches looked. But I made a little wallet. I even tried to embroider a freehand flower on it, which did not work out. But everybody super liked it because they were like, is that decorative? Good way to go. So, you know, it's not entirely functional. I tried to make a clasp. I should find it. It's vaporized into her room, so I can't show you. But the top of the wallet was basically the top of the piece of felt folded over, and I tried to clasp it with a tiny pom-pom poked through a hole in the felt. Not super functional, but very cute. So after that, I was like, oh my gosh, the universe is telling me that I should hand sew. So I spent way too much time on the internet looking at, I don't know, like hand sewing books and materials and garment construction and Instagram accounts with these beautiful artisans that hand sew, like, I mean, it's like couture work, which I could not even make my felt wallet thing happen. So I'm a long way off from there. Wait, my camera is tippy. Why? Hang on. Okay, that's a little better. Sorry if it's been like sideways the whole time. So I almost bought a bunch of stuff. Like I got some books from the library and a bunch of materials. And then I kind of was like, let me just sleep on this. Did you ever come up with kind of a new project idea and you just become semi-obsessed with it for a while? And then a week passes and you're like, what is that all about? And it's kind of, you've moved past it and it seems to be not as interesting. I'm sort of hoping that happens with this because I don't actually think it would be a good fit for me as far as things I might do for more than a month. But you never know. So, you know, question mark. Does anyone hand sew? Is it weird? I bought a sewing machine a couple of years ago and I ended up selling it because I just couldn't deal with the machine. I like didn't have enough brain power to get competent on the machine itself. And I do feel like it's something that you could benefit from in actual class. And I just didn't make it happen. So I was like, this is taking up too much real estate in my house. I need to get rid of it. So I do like the idea of hand stitching because the actual footprint of the craft is much smaller. Like you don't have to haul out a whole bunch of materials. It's just basically like knitting. It's kind of contained to your personal space. But you know, one thing at a time, right? One thing at a time. So that's kind of all I got. I don't have much else as far as craftiness. Things have been really good here. It's pretty slow. My kids had a day off school because of the snow. It's been really snowy here in Chicago, which is exciting, especially because it doesn't look like I'm the main shoveler in our house this year. Last year I definitely was. When it snowed, I was usually the one that was out there clearing the pathways and everything. But this year, my husband is super on it, and my 5th grader actually really enjoys shoveling. He appears to really like it. In fact, one morning I had started shoveling when I took the dog out, and he ran outside. I mean, when I went outside, he was asleep. So I don't know, he must have woken up and heard the shovel and like immediately gotten dressed and ran outside and was like, "You're shoveling without me?" And I was like, whoa. There is always an opportunity to be the main shoveler. If you want to be that guy, you can be like the czar of shoveling at our house. I will not take that away from you. So it's actually been really enjoyable because I can watch the snow coming down and not be consumed by the impending dread of, oh my God, I have to go shovel it. I have to go shovel it. Because if you leave it, then it ices over and it'll be there until April. So I can just, it's been a way more relaxing winter because I don't have to do all of the literal heavy lifting. So I love it. And other than that, it's just basically been business as usual. My house construction seems to be in a quieter spot. They seem to be doing most of their work in the basement, so it's not wrecking my daily life, which I appreciate. And other than that, like it's pretty much same old. So I would love to know what you guys are working on and how things are going for you. I've been really craptastic about going through and replying to all of the comments, but I do read them all and I will eventually get to them. I think. I don't know. The interface to reply to them on my phone is really inconvenient. So I always think to myself that I'll just wait until I get to my laptop, but I never seem to get to it. Or when I'm on my laptop, then the draw of the internet is too strong and I end up accidentally scrolling around for 45 minutes. And then I'm like, shoot, I don't have any more time for comments because I read all of Instagram. So that's kind of, just like a brain problem on my end. But I really do appreciate all your comments. I love to hear what you're working on. I love to see what's going on. And I hope you're doing well. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch up with you soon. Happy knitting. And I'm like, oh no, my children got marker on my nice table. Hang on, pause. I'm gonna fix that.